Oh, it's
Hey,
official.
welcome again to another exciting edition of the Steeler Fury Pittsburgh Steelers Show. Uh, Great to be here after a win. It's like it doesn't really matter what the score is. The W is all that really counts, and it doesn't matter who the hosts of your show are. I'm Will Massasak, also known as Bradshaw to Ben, Accidental Zen on Twitter, and joining us for a special edition, returning to the show. We think it maybe not the third time. Mr. Jude Loom is with us. How are you, Jude?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing okay, I wish I had your swagger, and I wish we were still doing old school, new school football. That would be I miss that show.
We could always run the clock back.
Run the clock back exactly. Yeah, Jude and I used to have a show called Old School, New School Football. I bet you can guess who is old school and who is new school.
I think it's a little old school now. So
Yeah, kind of. Well, I
yeah.
was thinking maybe you should get another co-host who's like Corey Krabowski age, and then you guys could be old school, new school, and you'll be old school.
There can only ever be one true OG old school. I could never do that to you, Will.
Yeah, I'm old. I hear what you're saying, Jude. Well, listen, the Steelers played the Jets. I know you are busy when the games are going on, sometimes skimming around the league and looking for highlights. But I did you see a little bit of the Jets Steelers, and what did you make of that near debacle for Pittsburgh?
I did. For most of the game, Pittsburgh did not look as good as they thought, as good as I thought they would on defense. On offense, though, they looked a lot better than what I was expecting, especially out of your new shiny fancy toy, Mr. Aaron Rodgers himself. He came out and he looked like he turned the clock back. He must have doubled up on the ayahuasca treatments, and he really got all those demons out of him for this season. Comes out 4 touchdowns. I don't know if he scored 4 touchdowns in his entire Jets stint, but you guys must be foaming at the mouth after a performance like that. On the other side, the Jets offensively, they just looked a lot better than I expected them to. Justin Fields actually threw the ball. I don't know if you guys knew he could do that, but
A little bit shocked, I'll be honest. Yeah.
he didn't look bad. He didn't look terrible. It didn't look like he was out of his element or anything like that. And it was a pleasant surprise as someone who unfortunately does root for the New York Jets. And then towards the end of the game, it was kind of just like what's the phrase I'm looking for? A regression to the mean. Both teams started going in the direction that you thought it was going to. Jets offense started stalling. Their defense, which played great for most of the game, they started to look bad towards that second half. And then opposite end, all of a sudden, Pittsburgh defense looks really good. They couldn't stop the Jets, but now they're stopping the Jets. They're looking like the defense we expected. Offensively, Aaron Rodgers, he gets hot. So good. DK Metcalf drops the ball, it hits the defender, and then it falls, hits another receiver actually, and then
Yeah,
it falls into his hands. Like sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but
that's
I'm sure you
exactly.
guys aren't complaining. All in all, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm happy if I'm a Steelers fan. If I'm a Jets fan, even though we lost, this is still supposed to be one of the better defenses, and our offense looked really good against this defense. So I'm kind of happy, even though
No.
it ended in a loss. But still.
Well, I was I was in the house, and I can tell you, I was, at the stadium at MetLife, and your reaction was basically every Jets fan. I mean, for a time there, they were certain they were going to win, and when the kickoff was fumbled, it was like the whole house flipped to, well, we gave it our good shot, we gave it a shot, and it's like we look better than we thought they would, and all this business. So I do think there's an element of that, but week one games in the NFL are weird
Mhm.
traditionally. I remember one year the Patriots won the Super Bowl, and like by the end of the season, they were a juggernaut who no one could stop. But the first week they lost like 28-0 to Buffalo or something.
Yeah.
So it's like it could be one some illusions in week one. My thought was I was very impressed by what the offense did with basically no live fire drills. Like they basically played not at all in the preseason. And Aaron Rodgers, I don't think took a hit since last year. And
Mhm.
even last year, he didn't seem to want to take a hit at all. So I'm not sure when the last time Aaron Rodgers really got a hit. But I would say, despite that, he looked pretty sharp. It was like a pretty much a vintage Aaron Rodgers game, what you would expect out of him 6, 7 years ago. So. I thought that was pretty good. It looked a lot better on offense, as you said, and I think primary reason for that was it didn't look as much like an Arthur Smith offense. There was still a lot of that kind of you know, a half boot, where you would normally have gone Justin Fields would have thrown a little dump off to the tight end or something, but Aaron Rodgers in that same scenario was able to make a little bit more with it because he feels more comfortable, that looking that second or third read and getting some guys that were a little bit more open. So yeah, offensively, there's some good stuff. Defensively, this 2 games in a row now of not being able to stop the run really at all.
Two
So
games. We're only one game into the
yeah,
season.
well, the game against the Ravens gave us all PTSD because the playoff game last year, the Ravens put up 300 on the ground
Yeah.
against a defense that's supposed to be strong against the run. But I think this is now a continuing issue where, I don't know. Here's how I feel about him. I'm excited that the offense looks at least watchable. Like this is the first
Hmm.
time as a Steeler fan in 3 or 4 years that we've had a defense that felt like, or offense that I don't have to go like grab a beer during the offensive drives because I can't stand to watch them.
Hmm.
So it isn't as frustrating. It wasn't as frustrating, which is great. And they put up some points and didn't play as
Yeah.
scared. I like all of that. The defensively, offensive and defensive line are the heart of every team, but Jude, and
Hmm.
this is not a good offensive and defensive line.
Hmm. I mean, you guys did put up 34 points. I don't know if you guys put up 34 points all of last season. So great that you come out week one, and that's what it is. Just like you said, though, like week one, it's difficult to predict, and it's not necessarily the best barometer for what's going to happen for the rest of the season. Granted, there are plenty of teams who come out week one, they win, and then sets the tone. Rest of the season, they're just firing all the way. But there are definitely teams they come out week one and they look good. You're saying, man, this is a Super Bowl team right here. And
Yeah.
then the next week, literally the next week, is just like actually fool's goal. We're
Dude.
gonna lose all the rest of these games. I
Yeah.
do want to ask you though, like how much of it do you think is Aaron Rodgers being able to go for that second and third option and those boot plays? And how much of it is the Steelers' run game just like not really getting off to a good start?
Yeah.
20 carries, 53 yards. Maybe it was was it more a sense of, hey, this isn't working, let's just go pass heavy? Or is it just like we were building up to this point and Aaron Rodgers is the reason that it's working on this level?
Right. Well, I think it's mostly about the quarterback change. If they have Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett
Mm,
as their or Justin Fields as their quarterback, I don't think they've ever felt comfortable with them really, carrying the team when the run game wasn't working.
mm,
So they would continue to, invest so much in the run game. But I just feel like you had, even on the first drive of scripted plays, right? It's the
yeah.
first time the Steelers have scored an opening drive touchdown in um, at least a season. I don't think they did it at all last season, so I think it's a little more than a year. And it's the first opening day opening drive touchdown since something like 2008.
Mm,
So they never come out of the box, scoring a touchdown. And I would say on that drive was the most effectively they ran it all day. They had a couple of, they didn't run a lot on first down. There was a lot of play action already from the start. So I feel like Aaron Rodgers play action ability
mm,
and the mere fact that they trusted him to do more both help. Also, like the Steelers weren't throwing any slant passes. They haven't thrown they threw like, something crazy like 30 slant passes all of last season. And I think there were 7 or 8 in this game. So
you've got DK Metcalf. You better throw some slants to that boy.
that's right. But I would say, having watched it and seen, more or less like, you watch all 22 when you're in the stadium
Mm,
where I was. And what I noticed is that
Research,
this
preach.
the defense, the team that they played couldn't really tackle in space, and
Mm,
that created a lot of big plays. Couldn't tackle in space and lost guys in coverage. So if you do those two things as a defense, no matter the talent that you have, I think some Jets have some really good talent up front. Going to be a long day for your defense because you have a quarterback that can take advantage of that for at least a week. I worry Aaron Rodgers. Maybe this is the freshest and best and most to prove that he had for the whole season. Like, will he look like this 5 or 6 weeks from now? Not if he continues to have Broderick Jones as his left tackle. Did you key in at all on the line play for the Steelers? Because this is a big year for Broderick Jones.
not too much. But the four sacks, like that is troubling, especially because Aaron Rodgers, he's no spring chicken. What is he, about 40 now?
41. Will be
41.
will be 42 during the season if he makes it that far.
Hopefully this is an outlier for you. But 4 sacks every game, I don't think that's something you want your advanced age quarterback to have to go through. Definitely on the O line, there's some fixes to make, and I think even because I'm running back, I'm looking at holes. There wasn't a lot of holes to run through. Like Jalen Warren was the best on a was their best runner on a yards per carry basis, and he only averaged 3.4 for the entire game, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse, totaling in the, as I mentioned before, 20 carries for the 53 yards. And it's not just the running backs, not picking the right holes or anything like that. There just wasn't much space for them for much of the day. So offensively on that line, I feel like you guys have a ton of things, a ton of maybe not the entire position, but there's some things to work on that offensive line for you guys for sure.
You're more casual observer of the Steelers. The A big difference from this game compared to last year was in the last 2 years is Darnell Washington played only 26 snaps in this game, and he had been really one of the big keys for them, both as in the run blocking game as a tight end, and then also as a pass blocker. So he helped the tackles. Like last year, he lined up next to Broderick Jones quite a lot and protected him somewhat because he could get the wide guy, and that leaves your tackle. He's still on an island in a way, except for he just knows he doesn't, he has a little bit of help to his right. Definitely helps his confidence. And I felt like they went away from that for whatever reason in this game right from the beginning. They wanted to have different personnel in the game, and so they didn't have that extra little something in the run game that they've had the last couple of years when they were able to run it well.
I
So
mean,
that's interesting
correct
to
me if
see
I'm
how it
wrong, but
goes.
they did go 11 a lot, but with Janu and Pat.
Pat Fryermuth, right? Who are both, they're H-back types. They're not necessarily inline guys.
They're more passing
Yeah, they're not.
pass receiving tight ends. Yeah.
Yeah, Fryermuth is, as I've mentioned about a million times on the show, is really good at like that on the move, finding a defensive back, smaller player on the move and making a good block. He's actually very good at that, but they're not guys who are gonna, you know, uh, down block a 315 pound, defensive tackler and get movement. Whereas Darnell Washington is, as big as those guys, so he's making a little bit more hay out of it, right? So I don't know. We'll see. Tomlin claims that they're gonna, go with a different plan every week, but they've said that before. So I'm, I'm not
Yeah, I'm
100%
not believing
sure.
it. You go out there in free agency and you get a guy like Jonnu Smith. I don't think you bring him in with the intention of making him a down the line pass blocker.
Yeah,
I think you definitely want him out there running routes, and that's basically what he did on Sunday. I'm gonna give you a hot take. I don't feel like this is the Aaron Rodgers you guys are gonna be expecting or should be expecting for the rest of the season. I feel like he came out, the juices are flowing,
yeah,
wasn't the best of exits in New York or New Jersey, I should say. And he had that little extra chip on his shoulder to make him feel like, let me show them that I could still play for one game. And
right.
I think next game he's going to come out and he's going to have another chip on his shoulder, one saying like, yeah, I can still be the guy to throw 4 touchdowns every games. And then it's kind of going to be like, actually, welcome back to reality.
Right.
Uh, more interceptions, more bad passes, more errant throws. I'd love to be wrong because I am a fan of Aaron Rodgers, but I just don't think this is sustainable, which is bad news for you guys because this I feel like could probably go down as his best game of the season, and you guys just barely squeaked out a win.
No. Well, to Steeler Nation's credit, I don't think anybody watched that game and thought we're winning the Super Bowl. Um, we're much like you and I have been for the last 10 minutes. We're mostly trying to hit on the high spots of like, all right, well, there's some, there was a lot of unknowns going into the season about what Rodgers was going to look like, what the offense was going to look like, how the other guys besides DK Metcalf were going to play. And yeah, there were a lot of positives to take away from that. And I mean, to say nothing of, Jalen Ramsey coming up big on the last drive of
Mm.
the game. And really like the game really came down to a handful of plays one way or the other. Our kick returner fumbled it, but we recovered.
Mhm.
The Jets kick returner fumbled it. Steelers,
You recovered it, yeah.
our field goal kicker made, a 56 yarder and a 60 yarder to win the game. Like any of those plays kind of go the other way. you could have a different outcome, right? So that stuff was all great, and I don't want to talk about mention last week without talking about those two things for a second, but yeah, it's like I think if you're looking for the long term, like I said, the defensive line getting thoroughly pushed around,
Mhm.
and linebackers looking a little bit lost behind, since they didn't have that protection from the defensive line in front of them, they got, really wiped out in a wash. And so this thing about, teams continue to be able to run the football that effectively against the Steelers, it's going to be a long season. That usually does not bode well, whether it's week one or not.
182 yards on Sunday. Brees Hall, who all of Jets Nation was ready to write off, looked like the premier stud back everybody was expecting last season. So, not sure how much of it is on him making whatever changes he made this past offseason
Yeah.
and how much of it could be accredited to going up against a now soft Steelers front seven.
Yeah, maybe. Well, let's put it this way. I'm before, I will say two positives for the Jets for you, the Jets fan. I'll give you a couple breadcrumbs. One is I think that the offensive line they have this year might be better than most that they've had in recent years. Long time since they had an
Sure.
offensive
Yeah.
line. I really like the additions. Membo looked they protected him a little. It's his first game and he's going up
Mhm.
against TJ Watt, but I thought that he showed pretty well for himself. And I thought the guards in particular moving Tipman to guard and really worked out. And John Simpson played a great game. So good for the Jets. And their offensive coordinator, first game for him in the league, Tanner Engstrand, right? And I thought that was the most impressive thing for the Jets.
Absolutely.
You made he found a way to make Justin Fields look comfortable and effective,
Mhm.
and and he mixed it up. It was not like I could go think back on the game and think, oh well, they just did this thing over and over again. No, they had quite a few different run looks, and they got Fields out on the edge, and they did some great things. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe the Jets will be a little better than we all think they're going to be, and this win will be more impressive. But or they'll just be the Jets again.
I mean, they're definitely going to be the Jets again. I mean, you had a great chance to win it, and you took every opportunity to lose it at the end of the game. That tackle by Jalen Ramsey, you mentioned it, and then it
Yeah.
just played in my head instantly. I'm definitely an offensive guy, but that was a great play defensively, and I'm rooting for I'm forgetting the receiver's name here,
Oh,
for Garrett Wilson
Wilson.
to
Yeah.
make the catch, obviously, because it's ball game if you don't. But I stood up out my chair like, woo, like beautiful hit,
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
perfect form,
How everybody was reacting like, in a way I didn't expect in the stadium. And I was like, did he drop did that ball come out? I couldn't believe it because it seemed like it was delivered in plenty of time. However, I kind of thought Fields keeps that ball.
yeah, a little
Keeps
bit,
he's
a
going to
little
beat the
hair.
guys that are next to him, and then it's really like him and Wilson and Ramsey in space. I feel pretty good about my chances of him picking up a first down and more.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess that's the thing. The making those little plays at the end of the game. You're preaching to the Mike Tomlin, philosophy right there because his whole point is you keep the game close, you wait for the other team to make a mistake, like fumbling their kickoff, and then you make the little plays at the end of the game that are the difference. And this was like a classic, Mike Tomlin game. It doesn't matter how close you made it with a team that's not as good as you. What really matters is that you kept it close and you made the plays at the end. And you
Found
know,
a way to win.
God bless him. He loves to play that way. So keep
It's
me credit.
not good for your heart, but
That's
you'll
true.
take it, I believe. Yeah.
That's true. Well, let's move on and talk a little bit about this week's matchup for Pittsburgh. They're hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks, for a time there, it looked like they were going to win that game against San Francisco, and then San Francisco, much like the Steelers, just figured out a way to make the couple of plays they needed at the end of the game. And despite losing George Kittle and losing uh, Brock Purdy late. They managed to hang on and beat Seattle in the first game for Sam Darnold. Wonder if you saw any of that game and had any thoughts about Seattle.
Again, it's gonna be hard to call because it is week one, and they go out there against a San Francisco team. Honestly, I didn't think they were going to maul the 49ers, but I thought they would have came out and kind of made a statement for themselves. New quarterback, new head coach. We're going to go out there. We're going to show everybody we mean business because this is a San Francisco defense that has a lot of turnover, a lot of players left in free agency. They didn't get a ton of names, at least a ton of big names. And even in the draft, there wasn't a ton of studs in the draft that they went out and got and brought in. And it's like, yeah, same old 49er dominant defense. That wasn't the case at all. Uh, but still, they found a way to hold a lead for the majority of the game. And even with San Francisco coming out firing, George Kittle right off the rip has a touchdown, but then
Right.
he's gone for the rest of the game. And it's like, this is shaping up for Seattle to go out there. Maybe I'm the only person in all of America who feels like this, but this is shaping up for Seattle to go out there and say, hey, we're truly a contender in this division with a
Yeah.
weaker 49ers team. Not sure what we're going to get out the Rams with Matt Stafford. Whole preseason, he's got a back injury. And is it okay? Is it not okay? Nobody knows. And then Arizona, they're still finding their way defensively. They're not very good. They've been kind of middle of the pack, added a bunch of young guys on defense. So it's like if there was a time for you to sneak in there and steal a division crown, it would have been this. What better way to help that case than taking game one of the season from the reigning division champs? But, they couldn't make it happen. So the other thing with that is just I'm not completely sold on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold,
You speak of
great.
PTSD. You've seen him, you saw him in New York, man. You understand.
I'm seeing his ghost for sure. But yeah, he Sam Darnold, great season last year, right? But I'm sorry. It's for me, it's like what have you done for me lately? In that last game in the playoffs, him leading the Vikings was hard to watch, you know? It was literally almost like he reverted back to that Jets version of himself and he's like, I'm seeing ghosts out there. I can't really do anything for you guys.
Yeah.
They just didn't look like the team that steamrolled pretty much everybody during the regular season. And instead they looked lost. They looked unsure of themselves and they looked like they didn't know what the game plan was. They didn't know whether to call a run or a
Right.
pass. And it all came down to Sam Darnold. He was ineffective. He was not good. He was inefficient. All the N words, well, let me take that back. All the inefficiencies in effectiveness, all of that. That's what he was. And that's why it was easy for them to say, hey, we're good with just this 1 year with you and
Yeah.
good luck to you elsewhere. Seattle went out there and gave him a big contract, and it's a mixed bag for me because you want to see him win that game, and it's just this is who you're getting out of Sam Darnold. He could be good enough, and that even that is new. I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. I remember him most from those Jets days, and he wasn't this good in those Jets days. Now he's good enough to keep your team in games, but I don't think this is a guy that's anybody's going to be game planning around saying we have to stop Sam Darnold in order for us to get this win against the Seattle Seahawks. So I feel like this is a game that you guys should absolutely 100% be winning defensively. Seattle did a pretty decent job because again, George could have went down, but they still had, for the most part, a healthy team as far as Christian McCaffrey being available to you, Jawan Jennings being available to you, and Ricky Pearsall looks like he's taken
Yeah.
that next step. And he's a much better receiver this year than he was last year, and it definitely looks like him and Brock Purdy have that connection going.
Well,
Uh,
he did till Brock Purdy is out for weeks. He's out for a month and a
I
half
mean,
or something.
the
So
whole team is basically injured already, so
yeah.
that's another discussion for another podcast. But defensively, they had their full slew of weapons and they were able to keep it a low scoring game, which I wasn't expecting. I thought, it was going to be a lot of points from both of these teams. But in a close, low scoring game, San Francisco came out on top. I feel like this is a good thing for the Steelers because I don't see them flipping a switch and all of a sudden dropping another 30 plus points like the Jets did. So I think this is a great opportunity for a bounce back game for the Steelers. Only one sack last week. I fully expect that to be way more this week. Even TJ Watt, no sacks, but he did have three QB pressures. So I feel like he'll get a first sack or a couple sacks, I feel like. And I just feel like defensively, offensively, this should be a game that's not even close, honestly.
Interesting. I don't see it quite the same way. I think once again the weak places for the Steelers right now are their defensive front standing up against the run, and on offense protecting the edges. And this, if you saw what Boye Mafe did to Trent Williams, so Trent Williams to me, yes, I know he's nearing the end of his career, but basically Trent Williams is as good as any left tackle in the NFL, and Boye Mafe gave him everything and more. I mean, like he gave him the whole kitchen sink of moves, and it was like he had him thinking outside, and then gave him spin move. At one point, he bull rushed Trent Williams and lifted him. I I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do that to Trent Williams ever. So that was very impressive to me. And I thought about that against Broderick Jones, and I thought this is not a good matchup for Pittsburgh. You wanted to say something, though. I see you here.
No, just that, Trent Williams really is up there, and a lot of times I feel like the name gets more credit than the actual product itself. I'm not saying Trent Williams is bad. I'm just saying nobody should be holding him to the level of play that we've seen in years past. Like he is 37 years old, so you're not going to get a Pro Bowl left tackle. You're not getting that sort of play from him anymore.
Yeah, not fair enough. Well, I just feel like that is still, a matchup that's key for me. And then the fact that you got like Gray Zabel and Charles Cross and Robbie Oots in the run game for a Clint Kubiak team, that just sounds like a formula for being able to run the football against even when your run defense is good, they're still going to have some success running it. So that was the other concern for me. I don't know. What do you think of in terms of the matchup? You said you don't think it's going to be close. So how would Pittsburgh adjust to those two things they had trouble with last week?
With run block, I mean, the thing about pass blocking is it's just a matter of you got to go out there and do it. I think run blocking there was it's one of those situations where it's so bad you have no choice but to get better.
Yeah.
And for you to win and for the offense to be rolling like it was later in the game with your run game basically completely inefficient, I feel like that's going to be great for them. Um,
But I meant the other side though, the defense stopping a team that really wants to, usually those Kubiak teams are really good running the football.
mhm.
They got some running back talent and they got some blocking talent, and you just gave up 200 yards to the Jets. That's all I'm saying.
You did give up 200 yards to the Jets, but I mean, the Seattle's run game didn't look so good either. Kenneth Walker, he had a terrible game from what I recall. I don't have the numbers in front of me,
Right.
but from what I remember, Seattle was kind of on the same level as Pittsburgh was as far as their run game is concerned, and that it was more or less just non-existent for the entire afternoon. So I mean, it's welcomed for Pittsburgh right now, coming off of two straight games where you've given over 150 rushing yards. But at the same time, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Kenneth Walker, and I feel like it was just a bad game for them, but it just didn't look good. Like at no
Yeah.
parts of it, there wasn't any like, oh, he might break it off. It was just like handoff and immediately a swarm of people just tackling and getting to the ball before half the time before the ball carrier even got the handoff clean. So I don't think that's going to be an issue of concern. I think what you have going for you is you've got that steadiness in Pittsburgh where it's like Mike Tomlin knows his personnel. He knows what kind of adjustments he needs to make. And I think very much so he's going to have it in his head as well. Like we've given up over 150 yards in two straight games. I think we need to do something to address this, and I fully expect that that's what's going to happen here. Especially when you have, you got some stud names still on that Pittsburgh defense. So I don't think this is something where it's just going to be a season-long concern or a recurring pattern. I think it's something that they address, they fix, and then this week again with a Seattle run game that didn't look good in week one, you guys bounce back in regards to, defending the run at the very least.
Well, the Jets didn't look very good running the football last year either. So it's like that was kind of my thought was it doesn't really matter, how you look. If you're committed to running it, it feels like that's enough sometimes. But I will say this, having a guy like Justin Fields as your quarterback really opens up the run game, not
A little
just
bit, yeah.
running, but also, for the running backs because defensive players got to play discipline. They can't just
Yeah.
crash down on the run game. So that's not really going to be the case with Sam Darnold.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm pretty confident in saying like he'll be mostly stagnant back there for most of the day. That's not a dual threat quarterback where you have to play it honest. You're gonna get those guys salivating and saying, "Hey, this guy is kind of stationary." That being said, Sam Darnold, every once in a blue, he can't pull off a long one, so don't get too aggressive with it. But at the same time, just like you said, he's not. There's no design runs for him. There's probably not going to be as many option plays in their game plan. So it's a lot more play it straight. This is a run. This is a run. This is a run play. This is a pass play, and less thinking. A lot of times in all of my football, every coach says the same thing. We don't want you out there thinking. We want you out there reacting, right?
Right.
So you take that phase of it, and you're not saying, hey, he might keep it and take off for 10, 15, 20 yards. It's going to make it a lot simpler for you. You can play a lot faster, and I expect you guys to be flying to the ball, you know? Go ahead and put the mortgage payment on it.
The mortgage payment.
Mortgage
Yeah,
payment.
that's you're probably the most optimistic person that's talked about the Steelers on the show in quite a long time. So,
I mean, look, Steelers, as far as I'm concerned, still a good team. Very good defense. Offense, great. Well, for kind of sort
well,
of good.
yeah.
Great in spurts, kind of bad in spurts as well. Overall, good for the most part. You put up 34 points. I'm going to go ahead and say you were good in week one. If you guys play the same game that you played against the Jets against Seattle, I don't think Seattle scores as many points. I think you have an easier time running the ball, well, you didn't really stop the run, but you have more success stopping the run this week. And I feel like it's gonna be a much better score. You're still gonna end up with a win, but your opponent is just gonna score a lot less points. That sounds like some good ingredients there for a W, you know?
Little home cooking, right?
Well, home cooking, yeah.
Well, any other parts of this? Like, tell me. Let me ask you this: what would be if you were Seattle and you were trying to come up with their plan this week? What would the
Mhm.
plan be that you think is a path for them to win the game?
The plan B. I mean, we've been kind of hammering it, but let's attack that offensive line. Let's sack Aaron Rodgers. You know, we got to him. Well, not we, but the Jets got to him 4 times last week. Why not do that again? Except just keep that pressure steady. For the Jets, it kind of waned as the game went on. Again, it was like a tale of two halves almost, but really it
Hmm.
was that fourth quarter that really did them in. But if Seattle comes out, they apply pressure for the entire game. If they are successful running the ball, that would be a huge difference as well. I don't see it happening. I just didn't see anything in game one for Seattle last week to make me think like, yeah, it'll definitely get better this week. So I don't see it happening. But if by some miracle Kenneth Walker remembers he's a stud again and he goes off to the tune of, even like a 75-yard game with one touchdown, I think that'll be a huge difference for you because obviously, you've watched enough football. If you get the ground game going, it just opens up the playbook that much more for you, right? But if you're not doing that and you have to rely on Sam Darnold just throwing the ball 20, 30 times, that's not a recipe for a victory, in my honest opinion. On the defensive side of the ball, I think, yeah, just force Aaron Rodgers to beat you, man. Keep that pressure on him.
Did
And
Well, here's the question: did Julian Love play anything like this when he played for the Giants? Because Julian Love
Julian,
all
yeah,
over
yeah,
the field last week.
Julian Love had moments. He was a player when he left. I think last year he left.
Yeah, I think
Or
so.
was it 2 seasons ago? But whenever he left, I was very sad about it because even though we were bad, he was often one of the like few bright spots. He's just always near the ball. One of those players who's
Yeah.
always near the ball, even though he may not be the one making the tackle, but he's going to be in frame. A lot of hustle, a lot of heart, high energy guy. And eventually, once you're always near the ball, eventually you're going to be the guy that's first to the ball, making the plays. And I feel like you guys got a great player there. Still, again, wish we had him on the Giants, but I
Yeah.
digress.
Yeah, and they got I love him as a strong safety type that you can use all over the field. And I feel like that is somebody that if you're Pittsburgh's offense, last week they played against a Jets team that has basically no linebackers that have any size or can cover. And so, for a team that really wants to use all these tight ends in the passing game, that was a very effective matchup. A little bit different story with Seattle, and also a little hidden factor here. Their new head coach, Mike McDonald, was the defensive coordinator for Baltimore.
Mm.
And I think, he is probably intimately familiar with what Mike Tomlin teams like to try to do, and
Hmm.
and with a lot of this Pittsburgh personnel even. I mean, there was a little bit of a rumor. Apparently, the Ravens were convinced that Mike Tomlin was considering stepping down last year, and that Mike McDonald was the first choice the Steelers had for replacing him.
Okay.
And so there was a joke going around the building supposedly that was, hey Mike, don't take any calls with the 412 area code because they didn't lose him. Because I do think he does sort of fit that, kind of Tomlin-esque mold, and I feel like he has a chance to be a good head coach. But this is an interesting matchup when the coaching staff of the other team knows you a little bit. Maybe that has a 1% difference in
It's a difference maker. If you know the other coach's tendencies, the favorite plays that coach likes to call and what he likes to do in certain down situations. That's definitely gonna, factor into your game plan, what you want to do, and how you plan on attacking them. Still though, I just don't see the Seahawks doing it, man. It's this
Understood.
this feels honestly, it feels like one of those games where it's like you know Pittsburgh. They're notorious for just finishing above that 500 mark, get to that 9 wins. I'm not sure what the outlook as far as the general consensus is for this season, but I'm thinking it's going to end up somewhere around that just over 500. And these are the games you have to win against teams that aren't better than you. And you can, well, some people, I could say, you're definitely better than. So you should definitely go out, grab this win, especially if you want to keep that streak alive and find yourself hopefully playing in the playoffs towards season's end,
They play this style of football and make it a close, entertaining game. Well, a close
regardless of who it is
game.
they play.
They make it a nail biter against whether they're playing, most teams in the league. So
Mm,
yeah, there's like three teams that they get blown out by, and three teams that they blow out, and pretty much every other game is like what we saw last week. So
mm,
we'll get back to a prediction about what will happen in this game. But first, let's talk about the rest of the league a little bit while we have a minute. Um, First game I want to talk about is the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions.
mm.
Lions are favored by 6. It was not the cleanest game for Detroit last week, and Chicago played
Putting
three
it
quarters
nicely.
of really good football and then lost their minds in the fourth quarter. How do you figure this is Ben Johnson's return, the new head coach for
For
the
the
Lions
Bears.
returns to returns
Detroit.
returns to Detroit.
It's this one's hard. Like I do the pick'ems, and I was looking at this one for a while because just like you said, like the Bears looked so good for the majority of that game, and then fourth quarter was like, nah, we're just joking. We're the Bears. What did you think was gonna happen?
Oh
Caleb,
yeah.
Caleb looked better. The defense looked like they were rocking, and then JJ McCarthy just turned into a completely different player, and that was it. That being said, I don't know if I'm as worried about the Bears as I am Detroit. Detroit just was not functional at all. Like they got I don't know what the rating is on this show, but I'll say they got their keisters kicked on national TV and they did nothing about it. They accepted it. It was like I think everyone came into week one remembering Detroit from last season, very close to advancing in the playoffs. Great season.
So yeah,
13 wins. Might have been 14.
yeah,
Doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it's a lot of wins. Everyone's thinking, Jared Goff, you look like, a Pro Bowl QB, and you were a Pro Bowl QB.
yeah.
This is the guy that's going to come out game one, but that's also the thing with Jared Goff. When he's good, he's good, but when he's bad, he is awful. And let me tell you, last week, he was awful.
By the way, 15 wins they had last year.
15 wins. Oh, I was
15-2.
shorting them a couple.
Yeah.
But again, just adds to that thought that they're going to come out rocking and rolling against the Bears, who have been bad for so long. It's still Caleb Williams' second season. They're not on the same stratosphere as us. We're playing for a championship. We've got the head coach that everybody loves. We've got players that are super likable and popular on social media. Everything says we're gonna go out there and win this game, and they got their butts kicked. I'm very upset about it because really I lost some money betting on them, but that's a different discussion. I think though, because they are a good team, they've built that equity in being a good team. So I'm
Sure.
gonna I'm gonna continue to believe that last week was more of an anomaly as opposed to what we have to expect going forward because you still have pretty much that same offense. You did lose a couple defensive players, but you still have basically that same offense. And though you did lose some defensive players, before those players left, a lot of your players on defense got injured. These are the guys that were supposed to be starting. So really, it should be a defense that's filled with upgrades. So I
Yep.
don't know if it's just we haven't played in a while. We're getting those first game jitters out of us, but I think a bounce back is coming from the Lions. I think the Bears, even with taking a step forwards on both sides of the ball, they're still not quite good enough to compete with a team that I think is of Detroit's caliber. So I think Detroit bounces back. They get maybe not a blowout win because it's still a division game against a division opponent. Obviously, it's a division game. But they'll bounce back, get a nice win, something around the tune of like 27-20.
Okay, so they do cover, you think, the 6 points? Because that's a
Yeah.
quite a big spread. I feel like Detroit is a perfect example of like the week one anomaly game. So I'd expect like you that they bounce back. Of course, if they lose this week, then the alarm bells are going to start to go
Fire
off for
sale.
them. Um,
Great
but
everybody.
but yeah, I figure that's the Bears are a little bit in that position where they still are not really they don't go into games they go into games thinking they can win, but they don't go into games believing like they're going to win, which is a
Mhm.
different level, right? So we'll see which team has fewer doubts by the time it gets done. I personally think that the Lions are also going to I also think they're going to bounce back. Covering six is tough in the NFL, even when
Mhm.
you play well. So I'm not sure. I feel like this might be a little bit of a closer game. A backdoor cover for the Bears, maybe like 24-20.
Mhm.
My man Isaac Tesla, I think that's a guy that they keep trading away players. I get the feeling he's going to adopt a bigger and bigger role
Mhm.
for Detroit, and that might get them out of their funk a little bit. Could add something new on offense that teams haven't seen before.
I thought it was supposed to be Jameson Williams. I thought, the plan for this season was to really solidify him as the number two receiver to Amon Ra. We saw him in flashes last season, but it was like one game he's great. The next 2 or 3 games, he's not really going to do much for you until here's another 2 games where he just splashes and goes crazy. I thought we were going to get a healthy dose. It didn't happen in week one. Maybe it comes in week two.
Yeah.
But to your point, Isaac Tesla balled in the preseason. He got his opportunity in game one with them getting smoked anyways. And he caught I want to say it was the only touchdown Detroit scored on Sunday. So a great young player, or it seems to be a great young player. And,
In
take advantage of those
spectacular fashion, I
opportunities.
might add. That
Was
catch.
that
That catch was ridiculous.
spectacular? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
spectacular.
Which
One
is,
hand is just,
I think, when I was covering him during the draft, I think it's possible that he has never dropped a pass in high school, college, or the NFL, including the
never,
preseason, which is
ever.
ridiculous in a game. Yeah, that's absurd.
I kind of need to double check that. That's a crazy stat if it's true.
Yeah, it's definitely something along those lines because he had his film from the school he was before he transferred to Arkansas, which I
Mm.
forget which he was at a small school, but yeah,
Mm.
basically it's just filled with all these ridiculous catches. It's like you just throw it near him and the guy's gonna catch it,
All
which
right.
unlike us when we play on Sundays. Um,
Listen, I made some crazy catches
You
myself.
did pretty good. Yeah, you did pretty good. The let's go on to another one. This is another one of those like, what does week one mean really? The Denver
Mhm.
Broncos at the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm.
The Broncos are favored on the road by a point and a half. I guess no one really believed that Colts win in Miami. And Denver, they beat Tennessee, but I mean they basically they left that game on the table
Yes, they
for
did.
for Tennessee,
Hmm.
and just Tennessee receivers just didn't really want to come to dinner. But
Hmm.
I wonder what you think of this matchup. Are the Broncos better than they look? They look kind of sloppy last week, especially on offense. The Colts looked like gangbusters. So what do you believe for this week?
You have two teams on week one on the opposite end, The Colts played probably their best game. I don't want to say of the season because we don't know what to expect, but they played their best game that I've seen recently.
What
And
about this new sensation in the league, the quarterback, Daniel Jones? Yeah, that's right. Does it hurt you to see Daniel Jones have a big game?
no, it doesn't because we've had games as a Giants fan, we've had games like this before where it's like, oh, well, maybe we can get something out of him. And then again, regression to the mean. He's going to come out and just look so sorry. You're not going to know what to do. You're going to feel like I felt for much of the last few years. I'm speaking to the Colts fans right now. You're going to feel like I felt for the last few years. You're going to be like, wow, how fast can we get this guy out of here? I just don't, I've seen nothing from Daniel Jones in the previous 5 years to make me think that this is the caliber of player he is. And I'm not gonna lie, it was impressive what they did. I expected a lot more out of Miami and obviously didn't get it. But this is a better defense, and I don't want to wish ill on anyone's playing career, but I watched so much Daniel Jones unwillingly. I just can't fathom a world in which he was so bad for so long. And now this is just who he is week in and week out, where he's going to be giving you a score on every drive, where
Right.
I need you to hear, he's going to throw touchdowns, plural. These are things we were not used to. So I don't think Colts fans should get used to it. Much better defense. I think Denver is nowhere near as bad as they played this past week. You're going against a rookie quarterback. That Titans defense is still kind of good. So I won't say offensively that they should be much better than what they were last week, but defensively, I mean, they didn't do bad defensively because they made Cam Ward look like a rookie quarterback, but Cam Ward just wasn't getting any help from his receivers. I think it was
No.
like four drops throughout the game, but on that final drive, especially where he has two drops from his receivers, just no help. That defense, it looked ferocious. The front seven, they were getting to him. They were making it a very uncomfortable pocket. And
Yeah.
again, we go back to Daniel Jones. What does he not like? He does not like pressure. He does not like, I mean, he might still have the PTSD from having to play behind that Giants line. This upcoming game, the Broncos defenders, the Broncos front seven, they're going to be in his face pretty much every down. And I feel like both teams are kind of go both teams, Colts being up here, Broncos kind of being down here, they're gonna come back to reality, and it's not gonna be even here. It's gonna be Denver Broncos, defensively, offensively a better team. Just
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say spanking. I need to see you do it before I can say you spank them, but I just really don't think the Colts are anywhere near as good as this past Sunday would
Yeah.
make me think.
I mean, I just feel like Miami just kind of imploded too. Once they got behind, it just got worse and worse for them. I'm imagining that the Colts start this game with a lot of confidence and like, okay, we're gonna get out there, we're gonna do this again like we did last week. Same thing, but it won't be if the opponent will be a little bit tougher. To me, the key for this game is, Bo Nix is throughout his college career and his pro career so far, very good in the red zone. He's one of the better red zone quarterbacks in terms of his efficiency and processing and whatever. That's like the highlight of his play as a quarterback. So the question is what happens on the other between the 20s part of his game. And I feel like against the Colts, they're going to give you enough opportunities to get in red zone that the Broncos will figure out a way to score some points. So I agree with you. I feel like the Broncos will have it together a little more than they had in week one, and the Colts won't get they will get a little resistance compared to what they got last week. So I like the Broncos by to cover, maybe it's a fairly close game, for the most part, and maybe at the end they pull away a little. Let's call it 23-16 Denver, a little bit of a low scoring game. Their defense wins.
I could buy that, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
By the way,
I
23.
was expecting a lot more out of that Bo Nix and that Broncos offense though. Like second year in a Sean Payton offense and
Yeah,
Sean Payton's the offensive guru. Just want to put it out there. I'm pretty disappointed. I'm not sure Bo Nix is gonna be. I don't want to put too much stock in one game. I keep
right.
saying it to myself, but it just didn't look like what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I think also Sean Payton's playing to that defense. He understands that his defense is better than most of the defenses he's had over the course of his career. So it made him probably a little more conservative than young quarterback, good defense. I think that makes almost any head coach in the NFL, pucker a little bit,
Mm.
especially when the game is, it gets started to get later and the game is still close. I think they don't push it as much as the envelope as much as they might, which is,
But I mean, the whole game, it was just like,
yeah,
where's Bo Nix? When is the magical Bo Nix gonna make his
yeah,
appearance? And
right.
we're gonna see what year two looks like.
I
And
don't know. You watch the first couple of weeks of the college season, and everybody is like, you get some SEC team playing against like a SWAC team, and
mm,
they're just like, winning 50-0. And I think people have that association in their mind that these early season games, good teams should just blow out the other team, like when they're better. But the NFL just doesn't really work like that. It's just
no,
too
no.
close. The difference is
The
smaller.
good teams need just as much time as the bad teams to figure their things out. And without playing all together to some, at least a minimal extent, you're just not gonna have any sort of
If only they had like, these maybe like a practice games or maybe
practice.
three
Yeah,
practice
like
games or
before
something.
the season
Yeah,
started.
before the season starts where they could like, practice on the field against another team.
Mm.
Uh, as quickly, one more game. This would be maybe the best matchup this week. That would be the Kansas City Chiefs, who are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, it's like the Chiefs. Are we to believe that the Chiefs are just not good anymore? That like they've lost their magic? and that we believe the Eagles are unstoppable. We're about to find out. The odds makers and the people betting still think it's pretty close. The Eagles are a 1.5 point favorite on the road at Kansas City.
Mhm. I don't think the Chiefs are bad, but I do think they're going to a little bit of a regression, you know? So years past, 11, 12, 13 wins, I think that number is right around 11 for me is what I can see them winning. Chargers are a good team, so I don't have any
Oh, no,
issues.
oh, last week. Yeah, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with the Chiefs losing to the Chargers. Eagles, still a good team. I do have a little, well, they did lose their best defensive player, Jalen Carter, on before they even took a snap on defense, they lost him. But offensively, I feel like Dallas is a really good offensive team, even though Dak Prescott didn't look the part either last week. And then I also don't know how sustainable it'll be where your top target in AJ Brown has one catch for 8 yards, and then your number two receiver had three catches for like 16 yards. So it was a heavy run game. I don't know that you're going to survive like that. I don't know that the Chiefs are going to let you get a win on them like that. That being said, I do expect that the Eagles are going to win this game. The Chiefs all offseason, they're talking about, yeah, we're going to go back to that explosive offense and we're going to put up points again and blah, 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 blah. Game one comes out. I'll give them a little bit of leeway because Xavier Worthy did get hurt on that first series
Yeah.
and he was supposed to be, you know, hugely featured in that offense. But for one player to go out and you just immediately revert back to the offense we've been seeing for the last 2 or 3 years, which is also the offense that you played in the Super Bowl that couldn't do anything against this defense that you're about to face again. It just doesn't sound like success is on the horizon for me. I think in order for them to win, they're going to need to well, he eventually connected with Marquise Brown a lot more, but they're still going to need somebody to go out there and be a deep threat. To me, that offense has never been the same since Tyreek Hill left.
No.
And that's
Although
because
Worthy looked like the guy to replace him, and finally they get a guy that they can, use, and then this happens.
he gets hurt game one, and it sucks, but injuries are part of the game. And
Yeah.
you kind of have to prep for it too. Like, I'm not saying you're going to have just another Xavier Worthy on the bench waiting for his chance to shine, but there's another guy who could run really fast and go downfield that you can throw the ball to. And I don't even remember that many deep shots from Mahomes in this game.
Yeah.
But again, they're going to need somebody to take the top off because everybody knows what you really want to do. Dink and dunk. That's what you did all game to Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. He
Mhm.
had 10 catches for like not even 100 yards. That goes to show what kind of routes he's running. Dink and dunk to Travis Kelce. Maybe Travis Kelce, if passed, he's more of a downfield threat. You could see him catching balls 20 yards downfield. That's not really happening. They want to dink and dunk it, get into the red zone. He's their primary guy. That's kind of their role. They want to run the ball, even though they didn't do very well running the ball, at least not with Pacheco. Kareem Hunt came in. He got a lot of third down conversions on the ground for them, but still not a great day running the ball from him either. Defensively, they looked okay. The Chargers had a great game. I'm a little bit worried about that secondary because Quentin Johnson was too open too often for me to be like, okay, this is just game one, no problem. Because at the end of the day, you're a cornerback. Your job is to make sure nobody's running free behind you. And a lot of times this past week, Quentin Johnson was running back there free. And you just can't have that happening. I'm sorry.
No.
But yeah, the Eagles, much better secondary too. They don't throw the ball as much. I don't like that. I don't think there's going to be a situation like that this upcoming week where your top two receivers have all of four catches for the entire game. But yeah, I think defensively, I don't think the Chiefs did enough to overcome the defense that made them look so terrible in this past Super Bowl. So I think it's another Eagles win. I don't it's the Chiefs, so I tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I don't think they'll have a real chance at winning either, if that makes sense.
I mean, I love the improvements that Kansas City made in their offensive line, and I felt like that was the main difference in the Super Bowl was they just had so many offensive line and protection problems that you just can't overcome that against a good team.
Did you like it? Because I feel like they still looked kind of sorry this past week too.
Yeah, they're better. I mean, I'm saying they're better than they were. But
They're
I was going to say, I think if you're Philly, you're perfectly happy to play an attrition game here because that's the kind of game Philly, likes to play anyway. Because Kansas City has, if you talk about their high end, the top talent that they have on each team, it's pretty even. But the deeper you go in the roster, the more advantage Philadelphia has. Kansas City is just not that deep. One of the functions of, picking near the bottom of every round of the draft
oh, yeah.
for a few years in a row. They just don't look like they have the kind of depth that they used to. So when you lose a guy like James Worthy, they don't have immediately two more guys to step in. Whereas like Philly, it feels like, they could lose almost anybody and they still got another guy coming behind
Yeah.
them that's pretty good. I mean, they're, within reason, right? So I kind of feel like Philly will play a deep shell and, not let Mahomes get anything down the field, and will allow their many defenders to give a million looks and, get Pat thinking for just that half second. That's the difference between an easy pickup and, maybe having to throw the ball away or whatever. And then over time, during the course of the game, it's like you're just gonna, it starts off close and you're just slowly gonna edge away from them as the game goes on and they get deeper into, you know, um, like I said, the lack of depth. I think you'll start to see it later in the game. So my guess would be that Philly wins a tough game on the road. I like you. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Kansas City, after losing week one, I think are going to be pretty motivated to come back, to the United States and their own home stadium
Mm,
and, get some things right. But yeah, I mean, primetime sort of matchup. I guess it's a 4 p.m. game or whatever. But yeah, it feels like Philly is just too healthy, too good, a
mhm.
little bit too much for the Chiefs. On a one given game, yeah, like later in the season, like if they meet in the Super Bowl, I think I'd give Kansas City a pretty good shot. But yeah, this right now
It's,
where they chips both are, well, I'm saying I would give Kansas City at least a 30 or 40% shot if they met again in the Super Bowl.
mhm,
But I would say that this matchup, where their momentum is as a team, they're just not quite ready for Philly at this point.
mhm.
That's what I think. But that brings us to our five-star matchup, as we like to say around here, and that is
Five-star
the
matchup.
Steelers hosting the Seattle Seahawks. The Steelers are a 3-point favorite at home, which makes it sound like people don't really believe they're going to blow them out, as you happen to think. But you love this. You're hammering the 3 points for the Steelers. I could tell.
Hammer. Hammer. Put the mortgage on it. Hammer it.
I'm gonna get back to you when it's 2020 in the fourth quarter with like
If
5 minutes to go and be like, Jude, how you feel about that bet right now?
if Sam Darnold comes out there and beats you guys at home, go ahead and ship Tomlin off. Just enjoy the rest of the season off, okay? Take the year off, enjoy yourselves, relax, get everything out your mind, and just try again next year.
Listen, there have been some really, really bad quarterbacks who have beat Tomlin at home. So, got to be careful what you wish for because, but so you think this, give me a summary and a score here.
What's the score I said earlier? I wish I knew. But yeah, I feel like a two-score win is not out of the possibility. I feel like a nice little 27-17 type score, and you're good to go. Two scores, you're not really sweating it. They'll make a little push at the end because they're throwing the ball so much,
Uh,
but you're firmly in control. Don't sweat it out.
I can't remember the last time the
Keep the rest
Steelers.
of the hairs on your head.
I don't remember the last time they won they have an up by 10 at the end of the game. I think that's been like I might have been 20 years old when that happened. I feel like, in
No
my
way.
in my soul,
No way.
I've aged a lot recently.
No way. You had the terrible bees for how long? Come on, man. You
Yeah.
haven't you don't get to talk like that. You're
And
no
even then, they're pounding the
you're no
rock.
Giants fan.
They're pounding the rock till they get down by two scores, and then suddenly they're AB and Martavis Bryant is all over the field. Anyway, okay, so I accept that. I feel like it's speaking of that week one, illusion kind of a thing. I think the Steelers offense comes back down to earth a little bit. I'm not sure if Aaron Rodgers is really going to be that much less fresh after only 1 week. But like I
Mhm.
said, it's the first time he's gotten hit in a year, and I do think that when you're 40 something, that definitely has a toll on you, and it does you don't necessarily
Mhm.
just immediately snap back to exactly where you were a week later. But I still think they'll look reasonably efficient. But I have a feeling that Steelers might try to work on the run game in this game against Seattle. The secondary for Seattle's defense, I think, is more of a strength for them than
So
their ability to stop the run. So I think the Steelers might lean on the run game a lot more than last week, keep the score down a little bit. And frankly, that matchup with Boye Mafe and Broderick Jones would scare the daylights out of me to go have a similar kind of pass game focus that they had last week. So I think they're going to reel it in a little bit. And the other thing about running the football a lot is even if you're a better team than the other team, it keeps them in the game a little bit. I could see the Seahawks having a little more success running it than they did and hitting a couple of plays in the middle of the field. That sort of middle of the field passing defense for Pittsburgh has always been a little bit suspect. So I don't know. I kind of feel like this is going to be a very close game that the Steelers will win. I have it. I had this vision in my head for like 3 days now. 23-20 in overtime, the Steelers win this game. I think it's going to
23-20.
be one of those examples of you play it close to the vest and keep the other team in it. Some break doesn't go your way in this game the way that they all did in the last game, and you keep Seattle in it, even though I think the Steelers are a better team, and Sam Darnold certainly not my favorite quarterback, but like I said, that knowledge of Mike McDonald of Steelers, put all those factors together, maybe some bad weather, 23-20 Steelers in overtime. That's my pick. Sticking with it, Jude.
Not
Um,
only not only game picks, we're giving you weather advice too. Bad weather in Pittsburgh this
I don't
week.
know. Maybe bad weather in Pittsburgh is like the easiest thing to predict. It's like every other day. Jude, I'm going to give you the last word before you head out.
The last word.
About
Wow.
anything, man.
I didn't know
I
it
will,
was
you weren't prepared for this.
I wasn't prepared for this. The last word. Well, I know it's a Pittsburgh focused podcast, but I got to take the time to talk about my Giants,
Oh, the New York
We
Football Giants.
still suck. We got Russ. You guys didn't want him. I don't know what about that made us want him, but surprise, we still suck. Russ is still not very good.
Russ
His
is
good
still
days are
Russ.
behind him. You guys did the right thing. We're the Giants, so we did the wrong thing. You guys have a great week.
Well, Jude, my final thought is thank you for being with us this week. Corey and
My pleasure.
Jeremy couldn't make it this week, so happy to have you because always good to talk football with you, my friend. And I don't know, someday we'll be a little less busy. I'll be a little less busy, maybe, and we'll do some more old school, new school football for the people because the demand is incredible.
Don't
Many
tease me.
emails and letters every week we get.
Don't you tease me, but I look forward to it. Yeah.
All right. So thank you for all of you listening and to Corey and Jeremy and everybody at SteelerFury.com. And with that note, I say go get them Steelers. Jude, I'm out.
Go get them, Steelers.